Chair Bryant. Vice Chair Judge Lamb.
Here.
Cindy Harper.
Present.
Michael Graves.
Present.
Judge Hodges.
Here.
Major Bowen.
Here.
Susan Sismadia. Here. Joshua Fairbrother.
Here.
Robin Lanier.
Here.
Rosie Skinner.
I guess next is a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I see we published on the website on June 20th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
And do I hear a motion to approve them?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Major Bowen, second by Ms. Harper. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Now, let's see. SMA Criminal Justice Substance Abuse Planning Grant Application Update. Who's got that?
I have it, but I don't have an update. Today is supposed to be the day to make the decision, but it hasn't updated yet. And it keeps getting extended, so if we don't know today, they'll publish another extension on the decision.
Okay, so we have no idea.
Not yet. I checked right before I came here.
Do we have any idea what the problem is?
No, I mean, it happens often. Extended the war date, so.
Second item is the jail population. Gonna guess that's Major Bowen.
Yes, I brought Captain Peterson to cover the jail population. And I believe we have a handout. You can sit here. It's okay if you sit here.
Can he sit there or do you have the podium?
At the podium, please.
Okay.
Too many rules.
So it is.
All right.
State your name for the record.
Captain Brian Peterson from the Marion County Jail. Today's count was 1888. The average daily population for June was 1887. From January 1st to the end of June, the average daily population was 1818. Compared to 2023, all of 2023, the average daily population was 1707. And then, in reference to the no bond arrest, January from this year to today, there has been 1,053 inmates arrested on a no bond status. Compared to the same time last year at 521, and then in January 1st, 2023 through the end of last year, it was 808. And then I have the average arrests. So far this year, the monthly average arrest is 1,074, which equals to daily average arrest of 36. And then all of last year, the monthly average was 990, with a daily average of 333. We currently have 52 inmates in the jail that have identified as being a veteran. So far this year, we've 203 have been arrested. And then as far as our ICE detainers go, we have 34 inmates in custody with an ICE detainer currently. And so far this year, Immigration Border Patrol has placed 48 detainers.
So basically they stay forever.
Well, not forever, but yeah, for a long period of
long
time.
time.
Yes, sir.
And what's the maximum capacity?
For the jail, it's 1924 from bed count,
That's total beds.
total bed count.
What's your more realistic? How many can you actually hold? Taking into
Well,
account.
we can maneuver to push more people in, which we do week to week. We have to cycle people, move people, to adjust.
I mean, at what point do we have a problem because we're full, like,
Well, you're full now,
right?
and we have a housing to close. So we're stretched about as thin as we can to adapt to the housing being down.
How long, what's that look like?
It depends. The last renovation took a considerable amount of time, several months. But it's the same type of pod with the same type of issues. So we have a better game plan in place as far as rectifying those situations. So they're not trying to figure it out as they go this time. They already know how to.
Right. When that pod gets online, will that increase the number from 19 to 24?
Right, it will. Like 300 beds, 290,
Yeah, it's about 270, I believe, is in that pod.
270 when
But
the
the-
pod's back.
But the total rated population is 1924 for the whole jail.
So that would include those?
That's including that pod.
Okay, so 270, that just gets us to being able to comfortably house 1,924.
Right.
So right now, we're at 1,888,
Correct, as of today, yes.
and June's average was 1,887, daily average,
That's correct.
so we're full.
We're full.
Do we have a projected cost on the renovation that's ongoing now?
I don't have the projected cost. The county does.
We can get Jared to come over and give us an update on that at our next meeting.
But that just gets us back to where we are right now.
Yes, sir.
And our average right now is 1,884 a day. What was it in last year?
For the whole year was 1707 was the average daily population.
So our average is up about 100 people, our daily average.
Yes, sir.
That's 18.
And so far this year, right, it's been 1818.
Our arrest rate's also up 83.
Yeah, population's up, everything's up.
Right.
So by this time next year, we should probably be somewhere around 1924, if that projection stays. If we don't figure
I
out
would
some
think
ways to
so.
get some people out
I
of the
think
jail.
early on in the council meetings, we've established that the average is about a 9% growth through a 10-year period. I think we're already at about a 9%.
Already at 9%, right?
And we're halfway through the year.
Does that 9% average growth, do they apply any factor regarding overall growth of the county?
We did, in that growth, it was strictly done on the historical information, so it wasn't included the population growth of the county as quickly as it's moving down.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Just-
One, how long, for the ICE detainees, how long is the average person there on that sort of detainment? Like, what is the detention period?
I don't have those stats as far as how long they're there.
Right. Do we have any idea, like, for the average person when they have a hold, what is the average length of time they're going to sit on that hold? Sitting on any, to where the only thing they're in custody for is a hold?
Usually 45 days.
You can't
Well, that means
talk
it's-
over the
anyone-
audience, sorry,
I guess-
Rob.
I'm just trying to help.
I guess my question is, does anyone at the sheriff's office look at that, say, what's the average amount of time you have a person who is only on a hold?
ICE
Sometimes you have
Well,
holds,
40,
plus
yeah.
they're arrested.
We're talking about ICE hold, right?
Right.
Right, well, their ICE hold doesn't kick in until after the criminal charges are complete.
Right, but I mean, how long does that
40
stay
days.
before they come and get them?
48 hours. Once the local charges are cleared, they have 48 hours to come back.
So that's not that big of a deal then, if it's only 48 hours.
Right.
Right.
Okay. The other thing is, do you guys, I mean, we have a lot of arrests, and to a certain extent, you don't have any control over how many people break the law each day.
Right.
So there's a certain amount of things that are outside your control. But quality of cases is in your control. So I'm looking at, do we look at, well, of these arrests we make, how many of these result in filed cases? How many of those cases result in successful prosecutions? How often are, because I see a lot of stuff where it looks to me like this could either be a misdemeanor or a felony, and it gets moved up as a felony, and that causes all sorts of extra time, effort, and expense to say, okay, well, how many times do we have a felony that's either filed as a misdemeanor or pled down to a misdemeanor? Because those things would tell me a lot about quality of arrest.
That would be a question for someone else outside of detention.
It would probably be a question
Honestly,
for
I don't even know
us.
if we keep those statistics.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't see how that's detentions. All they do is receive them, try
No,
to keep them safe.
I get that, but I guess I'm wondering, does anyone in the sheriff's office ever keep that? So you can say, hey, we have our deputies out, well, what is their actual quality of arrest? Which would affect detention, right? Because you really, every time you have someone who's later, and it may be 18, 2 years later, the case is dropped, you may have had them in your jail for 18 months. And that's a potential problem. If you're looking at, hey, we're getting full, well, let's try to make sure we are full with quality cases. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, I think that that's probably a conversation that we should have on agenda item 2.4 when we start talking about our pretrial intervention programs. And I think that's also a conversation for the state's attorney's office. I did want to go back to because we had an update in our budget workshop last week, and I'm hoping you'll have those numbers with you, Major Bowen.
I don't know. What's the question?
Okay, so with Sheriff Woods, we talked about exactly how many federal inmates we were holding.
Mm-hmm. The ICE detained population was 34. That's current today,
Okay.
right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, and so I'm going to go back to what you said.
So,
Go
are you
ahead.
talking about people who are holding for the federal courts or people who are ICE detained? Those are two different things, right?
Two different things.
So
Correct.
give us each for each, ICE detainees and then federal courts.
Today's 34. Federal courts, I mean, I can only give you a wild guess.
76.
Yes.
76 when we looked at this one.
I mean, quite frankly, if they're going to take up space in our jail and we're getting to the point that we're at right now, are we under any way, shape, or form obligated to be the holding agent for these detainees? Or
We have an
do-
agreement.
Okay, it's by an agreement. So if it's only an agreement and when it comes to doing what's best for our community,
So
I
the
think
question
that
would be that if
we-
we came to the point where we could no longer house them, then we would decline to do that. And they would probably, I mean, they would understand, we can't be overcrowded, they're not going to house their inmates with us.
well, so I think that's probably a conversation that we need to go ahead and start having with them, since we are basically what we're seeing between the growth that we're expecting over the next year. And when you're talking, you've got 76 in there right now.
Right.
I mean, that's a significant number when it comes to the cost to the citizens of the county. I know they reimburse, but still, if we have to go out and build another bricks and mortar building and hire more people, what they're paying is probably not going to cover that. I mean, if we were to have to start having that conversation, that's going to make a significant impact on our jail population, right?
Right, can,
Who's that agreement between?
U.S. Marshals.
And county?
Sheriff's Office.
Sheriff's office? So we need to know whether or not we're stuck with that or whether we can do something else. So we gotta get somebody looking at that agreement.
Absolutely.
Can you guys do that, or do we need to talk to the sheriff's attorneys?
No, we have that agreement.
I think
I
Dana
wanna know if we
can,
can break it.
I
We
think
can,
Dana can.
we have a minimum of 90 days out of any contract that we do.
Okay, and I think Dana can probably reach out to our attorney at the Sheriff's Office on behalf of the Public Safety Coordinating Council. Am I correct, Dana?
Yes.
and start that conversation. And then also, as far as the ICE detainees are concerned, they're cleared within 48 hours after their criminal charges are cleared. You have to keep in mind how long it takes for them to go through that criminal system. So it's gonna be longer than 48 hours that we're gonna hold them.
No.
Well, longer than 48 hours sometimes for them to get through the system, or does it only take 48 hours?
Once
to get through the
they
system?
have to serve their time
Right,
here.
The problem,
Level charges.
a lot of those people would be out on bail. They wouldn't be in jail for the county court charges that they have, complicated further by the fact that if I want to have a hearing and bring them over, send these people, have to file some crazy motion with the federal court, or they won't break them. So it's extra work for the state attorney, but those people are sitting in jail a lot more than they would.
right.
Because they would be out on bond. I mean, a lot of them, the ones that I see, it's no valid driver's license, it's something stupid, but they've also gotten popped by ICE. And so they're sitting in the jail because ICE won't let them out. I give them a bond, it doesn't matter. ICE won't even let them walk into the TV room and do a video plea. We got to file a motion to get them to be able to plea so we can get rid of them. They almost all plead credit time served in misdemeanor court because they've been in there so long because they can't get out. And I think that goes to the chairman's point, which is those ICE holds costing us a lot more beds than we would otherwise be having to use there. And so we need to see if there's anything we can do about that when we're looking at that contract.
And that was a conversation that we had at our budget workshop as
Well,
well.
the ICE detainer is not part of the contract.
Right. We are not getting reimbursed for ICE detainees.
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding.
But we can't kick them out of the jail.
No, we can't kick them out of
After
the jail.
48 hours, you can.
After 48 hours. The ones that, and now there are some that we don't want back out on the streets. But I think that we need to start having a conversation with the federal government. Look, this is your responsibility, not ours.
Major Bone, when you say after 48 hours, you mean from the resolution of their state case or from pickup?
From any resolution
Okay.
of the case.
So while their case is cranking through the system, we have them stuck in our jail. We
Right.
can't let them out.
Correct.
Okay. That's what
And
I thought.
we, as a community, are paying for
We
it.
don't need it. Kevin, you said you had a handout. I think your handout has more information than the one that we got.
Oh, I'm sorry, this was mine. I didn't have a handout for this.
Oh, okay. With regard to, because like I have the 2024 average number of releases at 10/31. But I don't have as many numbers as you were talking about. That was just a question. You could send us all those numbers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, the rest of it, I guess, will come down lower.
And so I know that they have 48 hours after they've gotten through the process. And I'm sure that they're going to tell us possibly that there's nothing that we can do as far as housing them in the jail. I do think we need to start having the conversation about how we get reimbursed for them from the federal government. But can we also have a conversation and express in that conversation how critical our space is and how we need these people to be moved out quicker? Who do we even go to have these conversations?
We would have to have the conversation through ICE.
Would that be the U.S. Marshal, or would that be
They're a
immigration?
standalone agency.
Standalone, so we'd have to talk to immigration about that.
Dan's making notes.
So we talking about being reimbursed from the time of arrest, or?
Yeah, well, let's say, for example, Mr. Rodriguez gets arrested, and he gets arrested on a misdemeanor, and I give him a bond, say I ROR him, and ICE says, no, you got to keep him in jail. So that happens, I know it happens because I've had those cases, So the only reason Mr. Rodriguez is in jail is because ICE has a hold on him because I've released him. So ICE ought to be paying us to keep him. That's what we're talking about.
Okay, so the 48 hours, once that starts, we get $50 a day.
Right, but
So
that
that-
48 hours
yeah.
doesn't start until he
Right,
pleads to
until
my case.
you ROR, correct.
No, when I ROR him, do they become?
Oh, yeah, yes, yes.
Correct, they're not paying us when I ROR him, they're paying us when he pleads to the charge.
I don't think that's true, because we have subjects that post bond, and we notify ICE, say, listen, this subject has posted bond, he's now ready for pickup.
Okay,
And then at that time, that's when that 48 hours starts.
and they have to get him within 48 hours?
That's correct.
So if I'm ROR'd every one of those, it's a misdemeanor, assuming there's not something else to go with it, then ICE would either have to let him go or pay us?
Right, their 48 hours would start then, and what ICE does,
Where does the 48-hour time limit come from? Who determines that?
ICE.
Okay,
Okay.
and aren't we under a study to, aren't we looking at the cost to house an inmate in jail right now? Aren't we in the middle of a study for that?
We're in conversations with U.S. Marshals about negotiating our fee, our daily fee.
Okay, so that's a negotiation for the U.S. Marshals. I mean, well, number one, again, I'm going to go back to, I think we need to put them on notice that we can no longer provide that service because it's eating up space in our jail, and it's certainly costing us more than $50 a day to house an inmate with the escalating costs that we've seen over the course of the last several years. And then when it comes to ICE, who determines how much they pay? Where did that $50
That
come from?
$50 is the ICE.
That's the ICE. But they set that up, that's,
They,
right. I guess
so
it's
they're
their-
telling us what it costs us to house an inmate in jail.
Yes, ma'am.
And does the U.S. Marshal just use the same number?
No, no, sir.
What's their number?
75 right now.
75.
And so, number one, I think two of the things that we need to have within that conversation is the cost of housing an ICE inmate and then the time that we are holding them, especially with the critical spacing issues, or space issues that we have right now. That would just be part of the conversation that we need to have with them. And I think that if we are going to be housing inmates, I think we need to have the conversation with them that, look, your charges start from the time that they're picked up. I know you're smiling at me right now. It's okay. I like a good fight.
So,
Mickey.
I've got a question. When you have you're notified there's an ICE hold, inmates brought in, you don't start the 48 hours running by actually serving the hold on him until after he's otherwise eligible release for
They have to be,
from the jail, whether
through
by bond
local
or
court
sentence.
process.
Right. So, and Judge, I'm just have not heard of the difficulty in moving people and getting them to court with ICE holds. Once the hold is issued, ICE starts to tell you all what you can do with them. and what you
Right,
can't.
basically, the ICE hold is a hold without criminal charges. So if you're in jail, you have criminal charges if you've satisfied all your criminal.
Well, it's much akin to if they have a habeas from
Right, if they
Columbia
have-
County, we're not going to serve them with that habeas.
So your options are you either hold them for ICE or you turn them loose on the street. You have no legal authority to hold them after that, so maybe that's what they tell us.
So-
They turn them loose. I don't know.
Do they always come and get them, or do we end up turning some of them loose on the street?
They either.
Let's see, in 2023, they placed 43 detainers. They came and picked up 40 of them. So there is, once in a while, they will cancel a detainer.
Okay, so
before their local chargers are satisfied.
generally they do come get them.
Yes.
Or they pull the detainer.
Correct. Or they cancel.
Because my next question is when we're talking about the $50. Let's say we have the inmate who's in on a petty theft, and he develops some kidney problems, he becomes a high-cost medical individual. He gets ROR'd here, he's now under the 48-hour ICE hold, but boom, needs to be hospitalized. Are they paying for those medical costs?
I don't know if they are now, but we won't.
You won't?
We won't.
Okay.
And just so for everyone to know, there's a difference between, like I said, between holds and other people who otherwise have some sort of federal charges pending or being held federally. Sometimes we have people who have both. Sometimes the people who are being held federally pick up charges in the jail. Sometimes they already had charges and then are later indicted. So those are the ones that you need a motion, an order in motion to even get them to come to court. So those it's a long process to get those people to even though they're in the jail, to even get them in court. But we do have a process to get those people into court that I hope is being followed. But it does require court filings and everything else. So like I said, we see it typically two ways. Some people who are coming in on state charges, but later being indicted in federal court, maybe for something similar, maybe not. But sometimes we have people who are in there who pick up a charge in there. In other words, they batter another inmate, they hit a car or something like that. Well, now they have other state charges pending. So now we have those sort of things where we have them in on both. I don't know how that affected reimbursement rates as far as above my knowledge, but that is the other type of person who's in there who on both state and federal charges.
Thank you. If I might.
Go ahead.
Is it possible, my office never finds out about the ICE hold in these cases because that doesn't come up till after our job is done. Is there a way or manner, I mean, you all know that they're there, you just haven't exercised them yet, correct? Could you let us know? And we'll try to at least put those on the front burner and call them the state, especially in the misdemeanor charges,
Right.
and saying, let's get these things cooking. These are all pretty much just time served.
Okay.
Would you like that like monthly?
I'd like it when you got it.
I mean, a lot of them are traffic related things.
Yeah.
At least we can fast track all the misdemeanors.
Because it's a matter of days to resolution versus felonies, which are weeks to resolution.
And that would at least allow us to start billing now. Or they'd let them go, whichever, but if it's a misdemeanor, it's better than it's paying for.
Yeah, a lot of them are traffic related offenses and other things, you know, driver's licenses and sometimes pick up small stuff.
There might be some that are more difficult to ferret out the domestic violence and things like that. We have to look at future dangerousness. But we can at least try to get some of them through the system without waiting for arraignment, the next step and the next step. And just email those names directly to me.
Okay.
And I'll get them ferreted out to where they need to go. Cindy, if that's okay, I'll just forward them to you.
Yeah, or you can send them to both of us at the same time.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
I will tell you that we did receive a list after our last conversation, because we obviously were curious about the 30-something individuals that were being held, and the majority of them had either been resolved and were sitting there doing their sentence. A handful could have been addressed, and I've notified the prosecutors accordingly, which is something that we can continue to do if we get this regular list. And then there were some, for example, on sex offenses that we're not doing anything different. We're going to go ahead and look at the safety of the community, and that's not going to affect anything. But we are happy to make that assessment every day. If the list comes in every day, we'll look at it and handle it accordingly.
So I think we're going to have some pretty interesting conversations and hopefully have an update on some of the things that we've discussed today at our next meeting as far as our ICE and federal detainees are concerned. The next thing on the agenda if no one else has any other questions on 2.2. The item 2.3, reentry programs.
Major Burnett.
Major Burnett, Marion County Sheriff's Office, Marion County Jail. At the last meeting in April, Madam Chair, you had asked, we gave you a list of all the programs that we have in the jail. And you had asked about the possibility of a certificate program in the construction field. And I'm pleased to tell you that we've been giving you the handout, but we've started 3 since then. Basic construction projects, inmate worker lawn maintenance, and inmate worker welding and fabrication. And during the second quarter of '24, we've already issued 16 certificates.
Wow.
And so,
That is excellent.
if you go through the handout that we provided you, it shows the lesson plans for each of those 6-week courses. And then an example of a certificate that we give the inmates. And those inmates take those certificates when they're released from jail.
So are you having a good response from the inmates? They're interested
Yes.
in?
So we already had inmate worker assignments in those areas.
Mhm.
And so it was easy just to get the supervisor that supervises those inmates to come up with a lesson plan and make a certification program. So they're already doing the job.
Wow.
And then the other question that was brought up, I believe it was Madam Chair again, about the anger management. We talked about anger management in depth last time, and the question was, can we start those court-appointed anger management courses in the jail before pre-release? And so we did some research on it. We spoke with probation department supervisor Sherry West, and so those programs, from what we're told, first of all, they have to be certified to teach those programs. So there's a little manpower issue there, but also we were told that they gear those programs specific to the person, and it would be almost impossible to start that pre-release.
I think that was a conversation
Right.
that
Right.
was brought up by our public defender.
Would it be possible, if I may ask?
Yes,
a question?
please.
This is just me being me. I'm not sure how specifically to the individual the 29-week matters and retention program is, since I've read the curriculum in most places, and it appears to be one workbook fits everybody kind of thing. If there was the capability of getting a vendor or vendors into the jail, charging the cost while they were there, and somebody's providing the services, an outside vendor, and they could pass their security clearance and the like, would that be something you all would be open to?
Through the court, we would be open to look at it, for sure.
Yeah, because part of what I'm thinking is that I'm a vendor and, for my business purposes, I want to provide it to the jail, because if I get somebody that's 20 weeks through that program, when they get out to finish that program, they're going to come to me to finish the program. But we're making use of that time frame in giving them the opportunity to receive counseling towards the goal of sentence completion. And I think it shouldn't be up to y'all.
Josh, when you have that, when you get a probationer who's misdemeanor probation, it's either anger management or batterers intervention. How does that work?
We give them a list of the providers, and then they get to choose. The only question I would be is who's going to be paying for it while they're in jail. Then obviously they're not. Yeah. So then you're asking the provider to supplement 20 weeks of no money, and the person comes out and doesn't do it. They've lost.
And I'll take exception to that based on my experience. many have families, same people that are paying the probation supervision fee after they get out is rarely my client. It's a family member, and they can find somebody just as easy to satisfy that as to buy a sweet and salty pack for them from the commissary.
Is that all, is it all in person or some of it online?
Battery interventions, there's one that does in person and one that also does a hybrid, where they do it through an app, but it's in person but on an app. So it depends on the location.
It isn't the 29-week battery intervention program, the domestic violence intervention program. I think that has to be in person.
They consider it in person. They've changed it with COVID. They allow it to be where you can do it through an app. So it still looks like a Zoom meeting with all of us in a meeting, but it's just they're given a code to get in and they handle the meeting that way.
I'm happy to hear that because that isn't the way it is in some of our other grounds.
So they do have to be present and be actively engaged.
Correct.
They can't just log in
And just sit there. No, they ask some questions and make them pay attention and stuff like that.
Honestly, I don't, if you get these things in the jail before they left, would be fine with me. I don't know if those things are any more effective, especially if you're doing some sort of app. I mean, to me, those programs are as effective as the person wants it to be. If the person wants anger management, the program works. If they're doing it just to get through it, whether it's in the jail, out of jail, it makes no difference. So, but if you can, like I said, if you can do it in the jail at less cost, then that's fine with me. Because I think it's all the same. But we have a lot of vendors who depend on this business, right? I mean, and I always get concerned that we're really just supporting all these private businesses with sentences. Some of them I don't do anymore because I'm like, there's no point to this. All I'm doing is creating a business for somebody else. It's not really helping the person. I mean, but you know, typically anger management has been well scientifically researched over the years and effective if people want it to be. You know, drug and alcohol counseling is effective if people want it to be. I don't know why it couldn't be done in custody. I mean, if they're there anyways, you know, use the time constructively. And then they're that much closer to finishing off their probation. But,
albeit if it does work in some way, with some individuals, I believe it does. And I don't disagree with you, Judge, because these are blankets that the catch-alls the legislature have thrown on us and taken away the day-to-day discretion of the court to determine whether any. But if they do work, we're giving them a leg up, some of the individuals, before they get back out, before they're having contact with the remainder of society and their loved ones, and maybe they, A, we're getting them to partial completion of the sentence. B, if it does some good, wouldn't it seem that we want them to have a little bit of good done before they hit the streets and are faced with making those decisions again?
Major Bowen, would somebody have access? Remind me about computer access? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. There's no phones.
I mean, that may go well along the outside.
The
other complicated part is if it's an individual, same thing that's complicating on the front end, you have to have a place. Everything works better in a group. If you're in a group, you only have so many locations where people can meet. And those areas for us are it's complicated with all aspects of the jail. Attorney visits, our programs that meet in groups. The more people that you can be involved in those groups, the better. One person time.
Brings us back to the same problem. As long as the jail is at or near max, there's you don't have staff or people. But if we can reduce the population, then you have more ability to maybe try to provide us with space and
some of it's about people, but mostly it's about the footprint of the jail itself, the locations to do those things in. You know, our jail's a high population. It's all our programs is a high population too. So. We want to see one of our programs, of our volunteer-based programs that we think are fairly successful to, something would have to give. So we would have to evaluate whether we would be willing to give up one of our in-house programs. self-help opportunities. And the judge is right, if they don't want to help themselves, then they're not going to do it. So,
That's why I have repeat customers.
So would you take a look at that and, I don't know.
if you
how
have,
long
there's
you'd
something
be-
that it has to be put together from someone else, and then when that's established, we can look and see how it would affect us, or we could work with you.
You guys, Josh, you have any providers in other counties that go in jail with these kind of programs? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of, not the circuit that I'm aware of, and most of them we only have, I think, in the whole circuit, there's only 4 or 5 providers in the whole circuit that teach battery against anger management. One of the organizations have like 5 locations, 1 in each county, but we mostly just 1 or 2 per county.
So Josh, could you have a conversation with those providers and see if there would even be any interest from them to do
To go to
something
jail,
like
sure.
this? I mean, if we've only got 5 providers in the county that offer these
Here,
services.
Marion County only have 2,
Okay,
so yeah, there's only 2.
so we need to have a conversation with them first to see if it's even anything that they'd be interested in. And then if they are, I think that it would be appropriate to allow them to come up with some kind of a proposal as to how they could make that work. And then we could present it to Major Bowen and have him look into it.
We probably need to know the numbers of people that are affected by it.
Sure. There's enough people in there for them to come there and do it. There's only 1 or 2, but it may not be worth them
Right.
taking a night off to go there and do that.
But since domestic violence is one of the now no bond considered offenses, which is one of the reasons I suggest we're going to have more and more people being held with no bond.
Well, domestic violence was always a no bond.
It was a no bond on the way in.
Right, that part is the same.
Of that I'm aware, Your Honor, but the problem is we're seeing more and more people that are being held on no bond orders there. So we're,
Yeah, but not on a typical, but I think domestic violence, a no bond was there before.
you had no
People are
bond.
changing what they're doing afterwards, that's not part of the watch case was unchanged, that's all I'm saying.
The domestic violence, second batteries and things like that that never.
Now, the second batteries and things like that are different than, like I said, you're correct about that. But just the pure domestic ones, they have no record at all, but you have a domestic,
Most of those.
a lot, what is pretty wide ranging, and people, probably wider than people think of domestic violence. That was no bond from the beginning, but, typically they would get bonds at first appearance.
They would get bond at first appearances. We're seeing more without bond getting set
Yeah,
at first
yeah.
appearances. Would you agree, Sam?
Yes, I would agree.
So I'm just trying to think how we can work these people
Okay.
in more quickly, provide them the services that may benefit them, but also move them towards disposition and sentence. It may not work, but I'm just trying to think of things that we can kind of put things a little more on fast track and get them done, get things accomplished and resolved early.
So what do you attribute the no bond after first appearance, seeing more no bond after first appearance
I
to?
would say temperature of the legislature.
That's
I-
judges who are
that's-
first appearance, I don't think I've changed how I'm doing my first appearances on domestic violence over the years. You're looking at different, because I was always looking at the same thing, was whether you, but the things that I'm seeing that are being held without bond are far more serious offenses when they're moving to hold them for pretrial detention.
And I agree with that, but it's also including that we're seeing some lower level.
I see those, they don't come to me,
Right.
so.
I think a lot of that's weekend,
Yeah.
is what it is, and so they show up in the paperwork, whether it's a warrant or whether it's a new arrest, says no bond. And I think there are instances where the judge who's covering it on the weekend just leaves that bond in place, says no bond, and off you go, and instead of looking at the bond issue and the order of special conditions. And those people are just staying on no bond status until the public defender can get them in front of Judge Thompson. That's what's happening. I don't know if that's because of the new schedule, because those people always showed up as no bond, but it does seem to be more prevalent now than it was in the past years. talk to Judge Reed about that, I guess.
Could we possibly, for our next meeting, get a breakdown, a detailed breakdown of who's in our jail and why they're in our jail?
How detailed do you want it?
As detailed as you can get.
Wow.
I'm an overanalyzer, so please bring me all the details.
Certainly.
Charges, or like male, female, or?
No, charges, are they sentenced? How long have they been there? What's their citizen status? I mean, those types of details. I don't need to know male, female. I don't think that that's.
Citizen status.
What's,
Are they a United States citizen or not?
Well, we-
I mean, you gave us that now, but I would be interested in, what is the majority, and you probably already know the answer to this question. What is the majority of the people that we have sitting in our jail? Are they misdemeanors? Are they felons? And then as you get into each one of those, then what types of charges, and have they already been sentenced and they're serving their time? All that.
Okay. I can bring what we already create, and maybe we can go from there.
Yeah.
I don't think that you would want every person in jail's charge sheet.
No.
You'd never
I think you can make several different categories.
Like, for example, could you tell us if they're on a BOP?
We have different reports that we can show you. We can show you that if they're here for felons and misdemeanors only, we can break things into that category. We can give you capital offense,
Can you tell us
murder,
BOP?
anyone there that's there, death of another, we have a report for that.
I've got some numbers here. As of today, there's 179 sentenced felons in the jail. It looks like 1,470 unsentenced. Misdemeanors.
1,407.
Unsentenced
1,470 unsentenced, correct.
felons. Unsentenced felons.
Unsentenced felons, correct. And then for misdemeanors, it's 203 unsentenced. And then what we call our maximum risk or high-end charges, serious charges, there's 17 of those currently in the jail. Those would be like your murders and
Can you tell from your report, the unsentenced felons, are they on a violation of probation warrant, or are they pending new charges? Can you tell yet?
no, not on this report here, no. I don't have that.
Can
Probably.
that be generated?
Excuse me.
Can that be generated?
Yeah.
And
So how many?
can you tell us the level of felony that they violated their probation on?
I can tell you, Jim, most of those are going to be open felony cases. Reopen includes BOPs. Most of those for us are open felony cases.
Yeah. We also have a lot of people that, you can be on probation for third-degree felony shoplifting because you've had too many of them. And you violate your probation by getting arrested for driving on a no valid license, and you go to jail on no bond warrant every time. We do not put those people in jail.
Okay.
So
Go ahead,
I was going to
Judge
say
Hodges.
this, there's, I can't tell you how many felony, there's, circuit court has about 5,000 felony numbers pulled a year. That means there's 5,000 cases pulled. And so that's what the type of number you're talking about. Like I said, we don't control who does what to whom, but there are very high numbers in circuit courts and county courts of the number of people who are getting arrested. And like I said, none of us are in control of what people do on a daily basis. They're breaking the law
Oh, I
We
understand.
can't control that. But I'm saying there's just a very high number of these cases.
But we can
Most
control
of those
those
are,
in jail.
let me finish. Most of those are open felony cases. There are some, most of our VOPs don't stay a long period of time. They may be sentenced to jail afterwards, but they're probably not staying there too much time. So, I mean, my VOP hearing docket last month was 1 page, it had 4 people on it. So most of those, we churn them out pretty fast.
Okay, any other questions on just that portion of information? I don't think you're done yet. Rabbit hole, but I think it's important for this council to be able to dig down into some of that information. All right, so we have, and I appreciate the quick response that you all did to get that construction certificate program in place. I think that will be, I'm sure that it's going to be beneficial for some of those people that will hopefully be coming out of your jail. Will help them find gainful employment and hopefully keep them out of your jail. What other reentry updates do we have?
Well, I mean, we brought that in last time, shared all the programs that we have. What do you need specifically as far as?
Well, our committee has our committee met since our last meeting to discuss helping people once they are eligible to get out and connecting them to any of those.
I think the effort was to try to tie something in with probation, and that's where the focus was. But, some things you look at and you can't, if you know you just can't do it, then but sometimes that's the answer. So we're going to go an extra step and see if we can do something else to try to tie this in and have those groups come back in, which we're open to if it fits. But if there was any more direction you wanted this to go towards as far as another program. We have a lot of programs. I think that's part of the key to what we wanted to demonstrate last time, because there was an idea, some voices that were saying that we don't have any programs in the jail, we don't have reentry, we have all these things. Just nobody talks about it in a positive way. So.
Did you have anything you'd like to add?
May I-
Council members?
May I-
Yes, Robin, please.
So,
And welcome,
thank you.
officially.
Yes. We were granted some of the opioid settlement funding. We're hoping to expand the peer program. That, along if we get this criminal justice grant that we're waiting anxiously today to hear the status, we should be able to increase the number of peers that we have, and they'll be able to respond as a bridge program from the jail for those that are being released 24/7, getting into treatment if they want to, or help them for whatever it is that they need.
And I apologize, I missed your grant application update. Can you give me the there is one.
Today's the day we're supposed to get, but they just checked the website, it's still pending.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
So as soon as we get that, we'll have some more that we can talk about within this council.
Absolutely, but even without that, with the opioid settlement
Right,
thing in
or other
October, we
things.
would still be able to expand some.
Is
Criminal justice grant would just extend, provide more.
I think probably now this one is going to be one that we're all very interested in, is 2-4 pretrial intervention. I know that the judges and our state attorneys and our public defender were having some conversation about some of this at our last meeting. So who's going to take the lead on this one?
You want me to take the lead?
State always goes.
Okay, we'll take it. So I'll tell you, our office is a fan of pretrial intervention. We try to put defendants who are appropriate fit for the program into it whenever it fits. I think some of the issue we discussed at the last meeting is just the process and how long it takes to get into the program, or to, I guess for the court's purposes, for them to get it off of their docket. I see Officer Fidel is here. in the room. He is our primary contact for the state attorney's office with probation, and he and his team do a very nice job. They communicate with us regularly. And I mean, I'll tell you from our perspective, it's just a lot of hands in the pot, and I think that's what ends up making the process longer than the courts would like. The way it works to simplify things is that we might determine that a defendant's appropriate for the program. The defense attorney may also figure out somebody's appropriate for the program. They communicate with us, or we communicate with them. Once we determine that, we put together a contract, and we have to make sure all the parties are okay with the terms of that contract. At that point, we would send it to the defense attorney, who then needs to meet with their client, explain it to them. We then notify probation and say, all right, we're ready to enter into the contract. So there's just a lot of steps here. And with everybody's busy plates, it just takes longer than we would like. But I can tell you, we communicate regularly with Mr. Bedell. We're obviously in regular communication with the defense. We all want it to be done as quickly as possible. But I was not able to pinpoint one particular issue with the process that is the one spot where it's being held up. Mr. Graves, I don't know if you see something different on your side.
I guess one of the questions I would have is, do we have any idea, just from the day of mass statistics, from the day that it first is dropped at the probation office? We've got this person, I don't even know in Marion how the pretrial intervention contract goes to y'all.
Well, I brought Officer Bedell, who is our subject matter expert for felony probation, and he can come up and answer any questions. And he's been doing the pretrial intervention program for 10 years. So for 10 years here in Marion County, so he can tell you, because right after we had our last meeting, I went to him and we talked about some things, so he can tell you the process.
Specific question?
Just, I guess my specific question would start back in the days earlier this year when I was on docket, one of my pretrial intervention cases. We had it all signed up, sealed by all the parties, turned it into the court, which was different than some places. Is it the court or the clerk's office that then sends the proposed agreement to y'all?
No, what happens is, like Ms. Wonderful was saying, I don't, when everything is all said and done, the state attorney sends me the packet to me. And I will say one thing, I don't know when the court dates are. Right. No one tells me what the court dates are. So when I get it, I have generally 30 days to process this.
Okay.
And if I call the defendant, I'll ask them sometimes, when's your court date? And they never know. And I'm not going to research every case when their court date is. They should know when their court date is. They'll say, I don't know my court date, I don't have a court date. Now, that's almost impossible if you have a court date, but that's on you. So I have about 30 days to bring them in. I usually bring them in about a week, couple of weeks, and I say that because I have another caseload. I had a caseload of, I'm the drug officer for drug court, Judge Sanders, and I'm the PTI officer. So I do have a caseload of cases I have to see, and the PTI cases I have to see. Prior to December 1st, it was just me doing PTI in all of Marion County. After that, I have another officer. So now it's a little smoother. Now it's two of us doing it. Because even my supervisor told me I was like overwhelmed. I didn't complain, I just did it.
So y'all ballpark, or from the time it comes in, your turnaround time within your office?
30 days.
30 days.
But I don't hardly ever take 30 days.
Right.
Especially if I find out the court date's like, oh, I was told the court date, say I get it today and I call them tomorrow, and what's your court date? Oh, I was told it's on July 29th. Okay, I'll get you in here on July 26th. Get it done.
So if we
That's
were
my
to,
problem. But most of the time I do not know, or I'll look it up and there is no court date on the court computer.
that might be something we can talk about, Cindy, is because I think, at least in some places, I differ from courtroom to courtroom. I PTI you. However, the court's not setting another court date or setting one way in the future, is kind of a control date. So it's the chicken and the egg, where it sounds like it may be if we can get them and say, the next regularly scheduled court date would be in
Well,
Or
we
days.
modified the PTI contract on that it says next court date, but no one has put anything on there yet.
And we did research some of them after our last meeting. Mr. Bedell and I researched it, and some of the ones that we did research, there was no future court date. There was nothing to remind, you know, that type of thing. So I think Judge Brigham does it that way. He sets a reminder, but
Right. This will be it.
I can tell you,
Hold on,
sorry.
I said that'll be easy.
Okay. Judge August?
I give all of my court dates, and it's always the next pretrial. Because I want to know the next pretrial. If they're not in, then I want to know why. Sometimes the people don't call you back, all the rest of the stuff. I would prefer if we had it to where we say, okay, you're going into PTI. You need to call this person in the next 5 days. Because why should he have to reach out to someone at PTI? The
Well-
person who's getting, let me finish, I appreciate it. I guess the way I look at it is, the person who's getting the benefit of the PTI, they need to be the one to say, listen, you have 5 days to call him. If you don't call him, no more PTI. Because and the reason I say this, is because when we do it this way, when we count on them, and they're getting the benefit. They have supposedly committed a criminal offense, and they're gonna get out of this with nothing on their criminal record. They have a huge incentive to do that. Like when I send someone to probation, like, how long does he have to report? The answer, today. You're gonna leave court and go today, unless it's after 3:30, and then I tell them you need to be there by, noon the next day. When you send them out of your courtroom with no responsibility, then they will take no responsibility. We've got to do it that way. And I understand what everyone's telling me here. I feel like, and also, I feel like if we're going to do, and I'll probably go with this with Mr. Johnson, if we're doing drug court, PTI, anything along those lines, it should be done in the first 60 days of the case. If they want that, let's get it done early. Because we have people who are doing this, they'll go through discovery, go through all this stuff and say, well, how about PTI? I say, well, I've had your case on my docket for 14 months, and now you want PTI? We've waited 14 months. It's like, they're benefiting from this. Let's do this if we're going to do it. Let's do it at the beginning. Get them done. Take some responsibility to your case. Get it done. That's how I feel about it. And I'm not an expert on what goes on after it leaves my courtroom. I get that. But I feel like when we send them out, I would never send them out with no court date. Now, sometimes it takes the clerk a little bit of time to put it in. And sometimes I'll do it a couple extra months. But it's no more than 2, I can tell you that. And but it's almost always the next one, because I want to know. And I tell them, if you're in PTI, you don't need to show up. Like for me, it's August, my next one's August 22nd, I'll tell them, or the 21st makes the PD. It's like, your court date's August 21st. If you're not in PTI, you need to show up. If you are in PTI, you don't need to show up. Check with your attorney before you show up. That's how I do it.
So being someone who's not involved in the court system and doesn't fully understand everything that you do, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
When you decide that, or when it's decided that someone's going to go into PTI, that happens in the courtroom? It's discussed before they go to court, I'm assuming.
PTI is up to the state.
Right, it happens outside of the courtroom, it happens through discussions between my office and the defense.
Okay.
And they could go in before they ever come to court.
Correct.
But when I see them, I'm in court, I go, what's going on with the case? Okay, well, they're going into PTI. Great. Get it done. Let's get it done. Got till next month. I don't want to see you. Because supposedly you're done and you're in PTI.
Okay, so I just have a couple more questions. Just can I ask my questions and then we can. All right. So I get arrested. I'm sitting in jail. I am not able to bond out, or I am able to bond out.
Typically, if you qualify for PTI, you're going to be able to bond out.
Okay. So these are not always people who are sitting in jail.
They're almost never people
Hardly ever.
sitting in jail.
Okay, all right.
Which I think the difference in that would be in the drug courts. But we have more in custody that qualify for those post-adjudicatory courts.
But pre-trial, these are our lowest level. people
Okay.
Who are not likely to be in custody.
Okay, all right,
Unless they go to trial,
unless they go to trial
then they could go to,
and we're found.
right? If they don't get PTI, then they've got to go to trial.
Right,
And if they're convicted, they go to jail.
then they're gonna come
Oh, yes.
back and go to
Right.
jail. Yes, obviously, yes. Okay, all right. Then that takes my whole line of questioning that I had next away, because if they're not sitting in our jail, quite frankly, this is something for you guys all to work on. Yeah,
On all the misdemeanor side, all of our contracts have a deadline on them. So all of them say they must report by this date or.
Yeah, the slowdown in misdemeanor court goes to exactly what the officer's talking about, which is they show up at a court date and say, oh, hey, are you my lawyer? And then the lawyer says, I worked a deal where you can do PTI, and then they got to explain to them what PTI is, but it's the failure of the defendant to go see his lawyer until he comes to court, and then it rolls along fine. But they don't do anything.
and go.
I would also say, to answer one of your questions, yeah, they could call me in 5 days, but I don't have a contract in front of me. I have nothing to tell them.
But you can at least set up some appointment or
But
something.
why would I do that with no contract in front of me?
Yeah.
Which is my suggestion, that I understand, Commissioner, if I.
No,
these
go,
are-
go ahead,
Could I
you're
know
good.
what
I just,
Other counties that have worked well with that are, if you have before the court date, your PTI contract signed by all the parties, defendant hand carries it down to probation and parole, like they were doing an intake straight out of
We
court.
don't want them carrying.
That ain't gonna work.
why don't you want them carrying it?
You want a defendant to carry their own document to me,
Sure.
and they can make any change they want on it.
Yeah.
Years ago,
I can tell you this, I have practiced law in Lake County, Florida for 42 years. Been pretty active at it. Never once have we had an incident where somebody changes because you'll be found out because everybody's got copies, state's got their copy of it, I got my copy. We turned a copy into the court. Never had a problem with it. It moves much more quickly. In the same, if they haven't done it before court, they have to come, defendant has to come to court to announce their waiver of speedy trial, and they're told by the court, you have the same 24, 48 hours to go down, like an intake. So they're actually ordered by the court. They ain't carry their stuff back.
Well, I will say this, that way not my supervisor, or Susan, but the director told me to do it, is that it doesn't start until I sign it. And what you're saying right now, it starts before I sign it.
No, it doesn't sign till anybody signs it. We're talking about their obligation to carry it, to get the process started. Instead of it being sent between folks, it's hand carried down like.
And also one other thing too, I want the contract in front of me, and I need an address and a phone number. If they just call me out of the blue, I'm all like, I don't know who you are. I have to like figure out who you are, why you're here.
I agree with you, but what I'm saying, and I think you're missing what I'm saying, is they're treated just like coming out of court. They have to personally go down and appear, not make a phone call. You carry it down like you make your phone appointment when the court has placed me on probation. And if you fail to do so in that time, you forfeited your right to be in pretrial intervention. And it just gets things done.
So you're saying like a regular, Judge Hodges sentences somebody to 3 years drug offender probation, you've got until tomorrow to report. And then they report in to us. So you're saying that if they go before the court and they're ordered to pretrial intervention, that they should go from right there, report to the, like any other offender that we deal with?
no, I guess because I was told that one of the holdups was, and this may be true, maybe you can tell me what this is like, you get it, and you say, let me try to call the person. And then you either don't get them, or they don't return your call, or they don't show up. And so then we have a delay because the person is not doing what they're supposed to be doing to get this going. So I'm just trying to put a little bit more responsibility on them to say, it's your case, you have a responsibility to get it done. If you don't, then fair enough, we'll
And
do
I
it.
agree, Judge.
And I think that's exactly what Mike's saying.
But what our problem is I may tell somebody to call down immediately when I submit them. You don't know who they are, so you can't set them an appointment yet.
Exactly.
So it's kind of the chicken and the egg. So
Like I
now
said,
my
when-
person's called, but we don't know when it's gonna get
But
there.
we can figure out a way to get
So-
it.
I think that's a pretty good suggestion. Does that not work? I mean, they have to
What's
carry their
information I
paperwork.
have in front of me.
Well,
If I walk in with my paperwork and say, hey, Judge Hodges just put me into PTI, everybody signed the paperwork except you, my officer, and I walk down there with the paper, you have the paper, you may be busy, and you can tell me, come back Wednesday at 3 o'clock, or you can see me now, that's up to your calendar. But if I show up with my papers before you're needing to talk to me, it's like, okay, here I am, this is my paperwork, and you have my paperwork for you with my information, and then you can tell me, that's cool, Bob, but I'm busy right now, I need you to be back here on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. If I don't show up on Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you just let the court know, hey, Bob didn't show up for his interview, or if I, and if I do show up, you got my paperwork.
If I did do that way, I would treat it like a regular probation case.
Yeah,
in my
exactly.
office. Right, I would have to probably see them in that. I wouldn't probably tell them to come back. They have the paperwork, everybody is signed it. So-
Okay.
And when they come in the office, then I'll go over it with them.
So that would work.
Right, I'll go over with them.
But I think.
Yes, I would
the
go over with
big
the business
one is all the
actually. If you want me to do it that way,
signatures. It
that's
has to
fine.
go through all the signatures, then it has to go to the
Right.
clerk's office, and then by the time he gets it, then he's responsible for calling the offender to come in and.
That's what we're trying to get rid
It
of.
sounds like you'll be taking a lot of unnecessary back and forth out of the equation to treat it just like somebody who's going on probation.
Do we, when we sentence someone on probation, is that stuff electronically sent over to you
Yes.
guys?
Yes.
So I don't know why we can't just submit the contract then and have the clerk electronically send it over to you. Because that's how we do it when we sentence people to probation, right? We sentence them, and by the time you get there, I send them, you drive straight down there, you already have it.
But on the probation case, a lawyer doesn't have to sign it, just.
I know, but they're in court, but I mean, the ones that are in
Everybody
court,
involved is assigned it for it comes in.
but the ones that are in court, everyone's there. The defendant's there, the lawyer's there,
So when the
state's there,
defendant's
I'm
there, the contract should be signed in court by all parties,
Yeah,
and by that way, it can come
Yeah, if
electronically,
we do it
he's
that
got
way,
everything
boom,
already
done.
signed.
That's the way we do it in misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Right. Because like I said, the ones, and nothing happens, just so, most stuff doesn't happen till court.
Right.
I mean, everything is like, it's like this mad rush of, okay, now we have to actually do something today? Okay, great. So let's do something on this case, and then, every plea is done at the last minute, and everything is like that. It's like, it's almost like a whirling derby at times.
Yeah.
But everyone's there on that day to get everything signed, and then get to the clerk, and then out the door.
That sounds like it would be much more efficient. Just,
And I would also say, please explain to them what PTI is.
Right.
Because when they get to me, they hardly ever know what they're here for or what I'm going to do.
That's on the defense lawyer.
Yeah.
I didn't say that, because it is.
But sometimes I think the lawyers are explaining to them, but they're, for whatever reason, saying, I don't know about this. Because I'll have them explain something to me right in front of everybody, and they say, do you understand? No. All right, well, we've just explained it to you, the only way we can explain it to you, so they're just trying to get it all the time. But like I said, they're the ones getting the benefit, they should have the one that's the real responsibility to get this done.
well, I think if they're in court, and if you can figure out your system as to how you're gonna get that paperwork directly to him, and they know they have to leave that courtroom and head straight to your office, you are placing that responsibility on them, 100%, to get down
The
there.
state attorney would have to agree to the change in process. The PTI program, that would be something.
We are happy to agree to
Okay.
any process that makes it
Okay,
efficient
yeah.
and quick for everybody. So
Yeah.
no, we're not going to be the holdup on that. We're happy to do that.
Well, can I ask this one question then? Would they be on PTI when they are sent to me? Or when I
It's-
sign it?
So it's my understanding, the one person sitting up here that knows the least about it until now, it's my understanding that once that paperwork gets to you, you are the signature, the last signature that goes on that paperwork and they are then on PTI?
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
So if they come to my office, I can say, I can time for you to come in next week. For an
Absolutely.
appointment,
Yeah.
I could do that, you're okay with
They're
that?
not on PTI till they see you.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Correct.
It's a contract. It's not, and it's not a fulfilled.
But it's a contract
between.
between the
Contract
state
between
and the
much.
defendant. And I guess it's them, so.
And them.
And them.
I think the biggest thing is that we're making the process much more efficient, time-wise, and all the back and forth that it sounds like you've all been going through. That's a great idea by our public defender.
And if for some reason it needs to be amended, it can always be
Sure.
amended if something has to be added, or if somebody thinks of something after the court date, or something comes up, but most of your PTI are pretty simple restitution. They're pretty simple.
So Susan, you're gonna come back with the update at the next meeting on this?
Sure.
Actually, I'm sure you'll all share it.
Yeah,
Can I ask one question? Are all PTI cases, when they're decided to be on PTI, are they in court? Or are there lawyers there and they are not there? Because they're on PTI. So there are people, I got a guy in Utah, he wasn't in court when he got sentenced.
If I might.
Please.
Those would be normally the exception rather than the rule, because if somebody's in Utah, they've got to come back. That's why it's worked pretty well in these areas, that you've either had everything signed and get down, and I can announce to the court, Judge, we've been to probation, they have their first PTI appointment by this date, so I'm announcing it as an officer of the court, we already got it, or my client's got to be there. And if you're there, we can make sure everything's signed, and if the person's in Utah and has to return at some juncture anyway to come see y'all,
I don't necessarily think.
To answer your question, they don't have to be in court, but a lot of them are, because that's when everyone is, honestly, that's when they're seeing their attorney and the state. That's when you're ever seeing everyone at the same time. But it doesn't have to be. Nothing says it has to be.
Nothing says it has to be. I'm saying there's some courts outside of this county
Right.
that require them to be there.
Right.
If you're going to accept
There's no court
PTI,
action.
you come here, and quite frankly, PTI's been on the table for a little bit, and you're not here. PTI's no longer on the table for the same reasons that you set forth. Is you can't have your cake and eat it too. We've made an offer, we can withdraw an offer. If you're not showing the responsibility to show up in court when your lawyer told you to show up in court, so this can be resolved, you no longer get the benefit of this offer because you haven't shown the appropriate character traits that we thought you had. Something along that. That's what you tell me when you tell me.
That's it, I say character trait, exactly, yep.
So if he's put on PTI, told to report, they never report, then you can send it back to the state.
Right.
I'd rather have them back sooner than later, in all honesty.
Right. I think that was just part of the thing is.
Like I said, if they're not gonna do it, fair enough, I'd rather have it
Exactly.
sooner than later. The state, sometimes the state doesn't want to do the case after that, sometimes they do. I'd rather have them back sooner than later.
And so I think it's probably gonna be important, for your office to, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, however you all determine it, for them to have some kind of a list of those people that have been put on PTI, so that you have the checks and balance to make sure, since you're talking about emailing it over there, to make sure that that person made it down there and that everything's been done, so that in that rare occasion that you might have somebody that's not in court because they're out of state somewhere else, the follow-up is done with them.
We'll get together, I'll have a meeting to get together.
All right, we good?
Thank you.
We're good? All right. Is there anything in particular that anyone wants to talk about other than what we've already talked about today?
When does this council, do we report back to the Board of County Commissioners? And if we do, when would that be? And
We probably will, I would say after our next meeting, it would probably be prudent, and I can bring the update to the county commission as to everything that we've talked about. We have staff keeping the minutes and have a discussion, and at that point in time, it would be wise for us to bring you in as well, Major Bowen, to talk about the jail portion of it.
okay. Well, it's been months since we wrapped up the majority of what we're here to do. My concern is that the population continues to grow. We identified many months ago that there's a need to build additional jail housing areas. I know there is in the works to already start some type of renovation in addition to the support areas, the kitchen and the laundry, which has to come first. Not sure for sure what that target date is, but I know there's a lot of things that need to be established, funding, plans. Those things take years to do.
Absolutely.
And then not to mention the actual construction itself. So realistically, we're probably years away from meeting the need that's already here today for this council. The sooner the better.
Well, and I think that's why, the conversations that we're having too about that population and the things that we can do now to decrease that population without putting the community at large in any kind of jeopardy or risk. I think that's where some of these conversations are important as well. But I believe after our next meeting, we should have enough information to put together a very thorough report to bring to the commission.
I do just want to bring something up. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but we have received funding for a mobile probation unit.
Oh, wow.
And over $100,000 worth, but it will be accessible to all 5 counties. Probation officers and supervisors will drive it to remote areas. Because last year in 2023, I think in Circuit 5 alone, there were 510 violations based on technicals for non-reporting. So we have 510 for just not reporting last year. Violations, technical violations, felony probation.
Circuit-wide?
Circuit-wide.
Okay.
Can you tell me how many were Marion County? Not at the moment, but.
Yeah, I could probably get that. And so there's a mobile probation unit down south, and then they have one in Circuit 12, and so we went to our first step board and they approved funding. So it will be able to go, take some coordination. It may take about 6 to 10 months to get, but that at some point can reduce some of the jail population, and that we're taking the probation office to them. You can do drug testing with the oral swabs, everything, re-entry, everything can be done on this mobile probation unit, and we take it way far out to them, because some of our offenders, it takes them an hour to get to the probation office, an hour to get home, and they have to pay somebody $50. And we do have interactive reporting. We do have a segment of our population that does telephone reporting, but those are like the low-level offenders. The ones that need to be seen will be taking it to them. So we're hoping to cut out that type of technical violation. So it's going to be, I'm excited.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's a great story.
And we can look at pre-trial release for more people too, with supervision. I know PPS can do that.
And here's the other question I'm going to have, bond schedule. So I know one of the reasons that, or one of the things that we're saying is causing our population to increase is our population increase within our county. But have we been able to determine the new bond schedule, how much of that is contributing to the uptick in our population?
It doesn't look like that's the driver. The real driver is the number of arrests.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the only issue there is the number of arrests for the now offenses that require a no bond until first appearance. A lot of those people are getting a bond, but a lot of those people wouldn't have spent the night in jail prior to now, and it happens every day. So that's building a small, that's a small
I think we
component,
captured it all in the very beginning, and it's probably as people got used to it.
Probably about 10 people.
Well, every day. The bond schedule for no bond, pretty broad.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
It's a lot of,
a
but
lot of stuff that probably,
10 or 12, maybe 15 people every day, you think, at the most?
but then it happens
Do you
in
know,
almost every
Ryan?
burglary.
No, not per
really.
day.
Um,
Have our numbers of how many people are in jail with no bond compared to last year.
I mean, they get bonds at first appearance, but yes, they're there overnight when they may not have been.
Right,
It's hard to
perfectly.
get it,
You know, 24 hours,
24 hours.
maybe,
yeah.
some less.
So you,
I just, a partial driver, but I don't, just looking at the paperwork, 2 or 3 a day,
It's a minimal effect,
yeah.
which we didn't know. We didn't know till we know. And we thought it could have a great impact.
well, so a lot of those people, you remember, they might not have, even if you gave them a bond, they may not have bonded out till the next day. But they could get a hold of anybody, could get money, couldn't, you know. So some of that is hard to trick out because.
Most people that can bond,
Right,
they've bonded out before first appearance.
Right.
right.
And then some would get a reduction of a bond and, or stay, maybe they're used to going to jail, you know how it works. Maybe they got a reduced bond and rebond after first
But
appearance.
there's a lot of people who have bonds who are still at first appearance. They just haven't managed to get out
Right.
before first appearance. We'd be happy if they were out. I think it's less time to do first appearance every day.
So the impact's not there. It's not that great when you're talking hours, not days, months,
Yeah.
or weeks, months.
So as, sitting together as this council, is there anything that we're missing to move people that should be moved out quicker?
There's a couple of programs around the country where everybody who gets arrested, other than for things like homicide or trafficking, gets evaluated when they come into the jail by basically it's a division of the jail, I guess, or it's for pretrial supervision. They go through the whole record. They do a brief risk and needs, safety, what do you call it, like a test?
Assessment.
An assessment of them. If they meet the assessment and if their crime meets the threshold that's set out, they're all released. They're all released on supervision, drug testing, and they pay for it themselves. It's not something that we could start in, probably take a year to set up. But if we wanted to look at something like that, literally there's an administrative order that allows that entity to set a bond or ROR, they do both, and to attach all of the conditions of release. Curfew, check-in, job, everything. Drug testing if they're arrested on a drug charge. They also use it to look at other services at the same time that are provided by the community that can be a benefit to them. And what it does is it transitions people. They never go into the jail. They're literally diverted as they arrive at the jail. If they appear to qualify, if they don't, they kick them over to the jail. If they do, they're released. They're released, but they're supervised. They have to check in all the time. I mean, it's something I think we should look at, but it's a cost that has to be figured out versus the cost of building a new jail. Ultimately, I think that's what that kind of thing will do, is reduce significantly the number of people in jail. And the community's getting big enough, we might have to start thinking about it.
So you do what? And, you know, ultimately, Bill Gladstone can tell you what his final opinion is, but I can say from our perspective, I think most of the people who might qualify for a release like that, from our perspective, are already being released on bond. And the people who are staying in with no bond or a very high bond, it's because we're going to be arguing they're a bad person who did a bad thing, and they're high-level crimes, and that's why they have no bond or a high bond. So I would want to know more about a program like that, because from my perspective, if we can keep the community safe and release them, then we're probably already doing it. We're probably already giving them the opportunity to bond out.
we have variations on programs not too far from us. Orange County has their pretrial release program, Pinellas in the 6th Circuit, and then the 13th in Tampa are all a little bit different, mostly different to what they charge the defendant on the sliding scale, whether the judge has to be involved. In other words, the pretrial release people don't make a determination. They get a pile of paperwork, goes to the judges. Judges make the final determination whether to accept their recommendations. I think those people that have grown to the size that we are growing to have similar type of programs. They also furnish the ankle monitor releases and those things that are the new in vogue things to do that often create issues. You got folks waiting in jail for days so they can get on the ankle monitor because there's a limited number of them and things like that.
I think it's something to look at for the future. It's a volume issue.
Right.
If you think that we're doing okay, go down and tour the jail in Orange County, because that's where we're going. They got a full-time judge. All he does is first appearances all day long. His office is in the jail.
Of course, I met at 33rd Street when I was in private practice when they lost me in there for 8 hours. That's quite also.
They lost you?
Yes. You didn't remember Spivey and I were in there. We're just, we're in the middle of it on lockdown. Their cooking's not as good as some.
Right.
That's where we're going.
Thank you.
Quick question, going back to something that you just said. Do we not have enough ankle monitors? Who has those?
We just got notified for another company doing it as well on monitors, so.
I haven't heard that the monitors that we use as to our SOP unit. So.
And that was not a statement I would not, I hate to admit it, I had a lawyer who got arrested a couple of months ago and ended up in jail for a couple of days in part because they were trying to work out the monitoring situation.
That's...
That doesn't necessarily mean there weren't enough. It was...
Yeah, I mean, you have to have the buy-in for the belief in the
Right.
ankle monitor. Ankle monitors don't keep you from selling drugs, okay?
Right.
They don't keep you from committing crimes and doing that.
I'm with you, but I mean, it's just kind of like...
And Judge, we had a program like that in the early 90s. It was done through an order. And,
I remember that.
and then we go back up, that's a lot of years ago. But in the end, what Ms. Harper said, you really didn't see the difference. Those people that qualified for that were people that typically bonded out. There was a lot of requirements to it. One, you had to have a job. You had to be a resident here. You had to jump through a few hoops. It was a check the boxes type thing. The program came and went. Typically, the people were eligible for bond, and we didn't see any real reduction in inmate population. But they were a lot smaller back then, too.
And Major, I'm not disagreeing with you or Ms. Harper. I'm just saying that there are some of these spitting distance from us.
Right. But there's a difference in having 600 inmate population in jail and having the 1,924 population jail. So maybe the numbers would be better. The key to reduction is you're looking typically at 300. You have to cut 300 inmates day to day, not over a year period, day to day, to have an effect on inmate population.
And then see, Manatee County, when I did this with Judge McCune and Judge Taddy, like 5 years ago, we did a study all over the state. We went to Seminole, Osceola, and Manatee. Looking at the pretrial programs, and Manatee was the first one we went to. It was very similar to the population, and they were between 400 and 600 people out on pretrial release was well over 70–80% success rate. And there's a report, they have to report to APAGA, which shows the pretrial numbers, how many people are out, the nature of the violations, if they violate pretrial, whether it be for not showing up for court or new law violations, the numbers are there because they have to report it to the government. You have to have a pretrial release program.
And they do theirs on the front end prior to coming to
They
jail?
do. Everyone goes to first appearance. Everyone's assessed by a member of the Manatee County Probation Department. And then the judge at first appearance orders them on pretrial release with whatever conditions, and they're supervised. I mean, it's all on a POG report, which shows all the numbers. That tells you from every pretrial release program in the state of Florida, and then all the numbers for each one, and the success rates for each one.
So is that something that we want to put together a committee to look into?
Okay.
Yeah, I've got probably
Cheaper than building a jail.
I probably got 90% of my documentation already saved from when I did that study all over the state to the judges before. I have all the folders and stuff from it before, from just the reports from those different counties I went to.
We're not doing that, what he's talking about right now.
No.
Okay. That's, I was sure, I just wanted to put it on the record. So, would you be willing to work with Major Bowen?
Sure.
And would y'all have a sit down and then who, Cindy?
I'm happy to join that
Okay.
conversation, yeah.
Okay, because I think that they would need
Definitely
buy-in
the state involved,
from the
absolutely.
state in order to
We'd
make
like to
that
be heard.
successful,
Yeah, we gotta have the
absolutely.
state involved.
And is there anyone that I'm missing that should be having that that should be a part of that conversation? Susan?
No, because most of the pretrial release would go to
Okay,
Mr.
all right. Dana, do you need to do anything if we put together a subcommittee for them to look at that?
I'll work with them on setting it up and making sure that we're abiding by all the rules.
Perfect.
The other subcommittee, is there any questions, or do we need any direction?
I don't think that we can really do a whole lot more until Robin gets an update on that grant. And then, as she stated earlier, we do have opioid settlement money that we're talking about as far as and helping with that as well. Would everyone agree to that?
Yeah,
Okay.
until they get an update on the
Yeah.
ground, there's nothing we can do. We
Right.
gotta have the-
We can meet, because we'll know something before the next meeting, and maybe have an idea of the plan.
Okay.
So we already know about the opioid settlement money, and we will certainly have an answer on the grant by then, I would think.
Perfect. All right. Any other discussion by our members? Okay. Seeing none, public comment. I know we've got a couple people here. Come on up.
Okay.
All right.
I gotta go.
Run while you
Thank
can.
you.
Thank you, Judge Hodges. Hey, Mr. Fox.
Should I need to say that?
Still got the same.
Name and address.
Robert Fox, 816 Northwest 30th Avenue, Ocala, Florida, 34475. The first question, I got a question about from Major Burnett? I think it's Major.
So,
It's about the welding thing. The welding, do they get real certificates? Or do they just get a piece of papers that they went through a program?
Okay, so I think the best thing to do, ask the question, and then
Okay.
he can follow up with you outside of all of this, because he's.
Is the profession, is it is it just a piece of paper, or is it really helping? Because you can't just go be a welder. You can't go you can be a construction worker, but like welding is a big deal. That's a good paying job, and a lot of people can do that. So are they getting a certificate, just a piece of paper, or are they getting the real certification? There's not enough monitors. Not even remotely enough. And I know that personally because of my bonding company, because my people have sat in jail. They're really, really stiff, and I don't know who makes the rules for the monitors, but like 90% of the people that are put on the monitors on SHIELD, every person in their family is a felon. Okay, you can't say you can't go to your mom's house, but they do. So they sit in jail because they have no place. They have to go stay in a hotel. That they don't have money to stay in a hotel. So then they commit another crime. So the ankle monitors is great for pretrial release, in my opinion, but the sheriff's office, I don't believe that they're capable of successfully making it happen because they haven't done it yet. With the SHIELD program. I'm only talking about the SHIELD program because there's only one company here in Ocala that does ankle monitors. And I don't know what the name of it is. I believe Judge Lamp wanted, Judge Land or Judge Hodges wanted the U.S. Marshals to pay more to look at the contract with we need the US Marshals. They don't need us. We need their resources because the sheriffs don't pay for pings for cell phones. They use the US Marshals resources. That's really important when we really have a bad criminal out there that needs to be caught. They can snap their fingers. ICE, nobody's going to bond them out. ICE should be paying the most out of everybody to the jail because no bondsman will bond them out because we have to pay the bond immediately if ICE picks them up. So nobody will even touch a bond, and most of those bonds are 5, 10, 20,000. Population battery. Battery is actually lower now, I believe, than it was in the years past. The no bond with the new bond schedule is terrible because there's lots of people sitting until first appearance. And I watch the numbers every day. And the magic numbers for judges that I see, and I'm only doing it by what I see because I'm writing the bonds, is $150 and $2,500. Stuff that was $50,000 or $20,000 are now $2,500, $5,000. And if you're going to give a $150 bond, and I've been in the business a long time, you might as well ROR because they're going to pay us $100. I tell the people to go to the jail and go pay the jail the $150 because then they can, if they're found not guilty, then they get their money back. Why should I just make $100 when they can pay an extra $50 and get their money back? It's not good business for me sending them over there, but it's the right thing to do. So the most important thing is the U.S. Marshals. We need their resources. I mean, the sheriff's office is great. OPD is great. But guess what? The shooting at the mall was not great. And he didn't get put in jail until the U.S. Marshals got involved. And I know that personally. So we need the U.S. Marshals. So I don't think we should, as a citizen in safety for our community, I don't think we should be trying to get any more money out of the feds or the U.S. Marshals because we need them. We need their little things that they contribute to our community, like the pings on the cell phones. They can bring in resources. They can have 5 counties, like Tampa, Jacksonville. Those are 2 major counties. We can have U.S. Marshals here, boom, I'll shut up. So it's just important. I mean, the U.S. Marshals, putting him on the spot to go and try to renegotiate a deal to get more money from the U.S. Marshals, that's not fair to him.
They were already doing that.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, somebody out in the streets that sees everything, it's really hard. I mean, if they're doing it and they're willing to give the money, great. But it sounded like you guys were beating him up pretty bad about getting the contract. And, I mean, we need the U.S. Marshals.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you.
You're looking at me.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to come up or not.
Not really.
Okay.
But
You don't have to.
Well, I don't want to come up because we've already gone almost 2 hours, but
You can't talk from there. You got to come up, Kathy. Sorry.
I'm going to be extremely brief.
I've heard that before.
No,
I'm
I
gonna
know.
put my timer on.
I'm so tired, you have no idea. Lake County, can the state can you say why the population is half what it is and they have more population? Is there an explanation for that?
Kathy, you got to give your name and address for the record, sorry.
Kathy Whitehouse, 720 Northwest 30th Avenue, Ocala, Florida, 34475.
What are you saying, jail population?
Yeah, it's half of our population, and they have a high, is it a difference in the population, or?
Probably
I think that
demographics.
it's a demographic. We have substantially more criminal county court cases than they do.
Right.
And they have substantially more civil county court cases than we do. So it's almost got to be demographics. They sue each other a lot more, and our citizens commit a lot more crimes.
Wonder
That's
if
the
we
numbers.
could figure some of that out. I'm not quite sure about all that. But anyway, the other thing is, the software that he has for the jail, any report you want, he can generate. So I'm just gonna write y'all later about those kind of things. Subcommittees, do we have any minutes or meeting reports on those or future meetings?
Well, I don't have any minutes in front of me from any subcommittee meeting. If there's something specific that you're interested in, if you want to send it in an email, we'll get you what we have.
I already did, that's
And-
it.
And the only other subcommittee that we're talking about right now is the one that we just formed in order to allow State Attorney Major Bowen and Mr. Fairbrother from probation to talk about the model that he is very knowledgeable about involving Manatee County and what they did.
PTI.
Yes.
So we have reentry, that's committee, and is there another one?
Am I having a moment where I'm not remembering another
What
subcommittee?
committee, Robin, are you on now? Is that?
She's reentry.
Yeah, I wasn't.
You are reentry.
But I wasn't. I mean, I just joined the committee, so
Yeah.
I wasn't.
We had someone who retired from SMA, and so Robin is a new member to this council officially. So she will take her place on
So,
that subcommittee.
You'll be the chair then again, or do we need to vote a chair again?
For what?
Because I thought,
I think you're the chair.
For the reentry subcommittee?
yeah, I thought it was,
I think Major Bowen is maybe who they assigned as the chair for that
Who's the
subcommittee.
I
chair?
don't know if we've established.
I don't,
They
yeah.
established a
They
chair.
just are a
Yeah.
committee, they're a
We started
subcommittee, and they meet
talking.
together, and then they bring their report back to this full committee.
okay. So you're not having formal meetings or
We haven't had those
just
meetings.
chats?
We've already reported.
There.
We reported last meeting.
Oh, I was in Rome.
We met once and reported last
I
meeting.
wasn't here.
Yeah, they've only had one meeting.
Okay, I missed that meeting.
I was Roatan.
I was in Roatan.
There you go.
This means safe life. Okay, everybody have a safe life.
All right. Anybody else from the public who would like to speak? All right, since we have nothing else to discuss today, I think we had a pretty good meeting. I want to thank you all for your time.
What's that?
And, no, sorry, you
No,
talked enough today.
I just have to
kidding.
know, I didn't mess up the ratification, we're good on that, right?
I realize that you missed it.
Okay, so I'll go back to that.
There you go, okay.
So I'm going to guess that would be item 1.1.
So I'm not really on.
You're not really on there yet.
It's 2-1.
Or 2.1, yes, sorry. So we have, as was stated earlier, we have see what happens when I'm 5 minutes
I
late?
know, see?
Goodness gracious. I need some action on our SMA criminal justice substance abuse planning, or no, not the grant application, but the ratification of our new member, which would be Ms. Robin Lanier as the SMA appointee. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second to ratify Robin as the new appointee for SMA due to the retirement of our former appointee. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Officially, welcome. All right. Thank you all for being with us today. With all that said, we'll be adjourned.